The old house stood sentinel on a forgotten road, a testament to time and neglect. Before Cairo was even born, it was whispered to be haunted, a place where shadows danced and secrets lingered. Now it was all he had left, a sanctuary built of broken dreams and decaying wood, holding faint echoes of a life that was brutally stolen from him. Every gust of wind was a torment, forcing the floorboards to groan in protest. Sunlight streamed through shattered windows, illuminating motes of dust that swirled in a macabre dance. Discarded tin cans, like fallen soldiers, rolled across the barren floor with each passing breeze. In the heart of this desolation, a tiny figure lay curled on the unforgiving floorboards. Cairo was small for his 3 years, dressed in an oversized, faded gray t-shirt and rough shorts that had long since lost their original color. Barefoot and covered in grime, he clutched an empty tin can as if it were a lifeline. His chest rose and fell shallowly, a fragile rhythm in the symphony of decay. Sleep offered no solace. Even in slumber, Cairo remained vigilant, his young body scarred by the horrors he had witnessed. Each creak of the house sent a jolt through him. Every bird's cry made him flinch. Every gust of wind tightened his grip on his meager possessions. His tiny feet, blackened and cracked, bore witness to countless nights spent searching for something, anything, familiar in the darkness. He hadn't always been this way. He hadn't always been alone. But the night the fire came had etched itself into his very being, a brand of trauma that time could never erase. It began with a storm. Relentless rain hammered against the roof, each drop a tiny hammer blow. He remembered his mother's voice, strained but laced with a forced calm, calling his name. Cairo, baby, come here. Her smile was a fragile mask, hiding the fear that danced in her eyes. His father, a tower of strength, wrestled with boxes near the front door, as tendrils of smoke snaked their way under the kitchen cabinets. At first, the fire was a quiet thing, a subtle orange glow gnawing at the base of the wall. But it was a ravenous beast, consuming everything in its path with terrifying speed. Cairo, too young to grasp the gravity of the situation, simply stood transfixed, his favorite metal spoon clutched in his hand, watching the mesmerizing dance of the flames. His mother, her skin radiating heat, grabbed him by the arms, her eyes wide but filled with a fierce, unwavering love. "Listen to Mommy," she said, her voice trembling. "Stay close." Then the house screamed. A beam fractured, and the fire erupted with a violent surge, as if it had been waiting for that precise moment of hesitation. Acting on instinct, his mother shoved Cairo towards the back door, a force so sudden and unexpected that he tumbled into the rain-soaked mud. Disoriented and terrified, he tried to scramble back, reaching for her, but she remained inside, trapped in the inferno. His father lunged forward, desperation etched on his face, reaching for her arm. But the collapsing ceiling fell upon them with the force of a vengeful god. The roar was deafening. Cairo crumpled to his knees, hands clamped over his ears, the echo of a scream forever imprinted on his soul. Then silence. The bitter taste of rainwater mingled with the acrid tang of ashes filled his mouth. And then, nothing. His mother, his father, his home, all gone. He wandered aimlessly for hours, his small feet dragging him through the mud, until he stumbled upon the abandoned house next door, the one his parents had warned him to avoid, the one that now felt like the only place he could possibly belong. Days blurred into weeks, perhaps even months. Time had lost all meaning. Sometimes, he would wake up and cry until his body shook with exhaustion. Other times, he would simply stare at the walls, lost in a world of silence, as if expecting them to offer some semblance of comfort. He survived on scraps, discarded bread, half-eaten cans of food left behind by careless strangers. He learned to scavenge, to bang cans against the decaying wood, praying for a sign of sustenance. He no longer spoke. The ability had withered, choked by fear. When he tried to utter a sound, his throat would constrict, and an iron fist would clench around his chest, suffocating him. So he remained silent, a ghost in a house of ghosts, forever haunted by the night his parents vanished. But the worst part was the waiting. Each day was an eternity of longing. He waited for familiar footsteps, for the gentle touch of his mother's hand on his forehead, for the sound of his name spoken in her warm, comforting voice. Instead, he was met only with the scratching of rats within the walls. And yet, despite the pain, despite the gnawing emptiness, he refused to leave. To leave would be to accept that they were truly gone, that they were never coming back. That thought was more unbearable than any hunger. But everything changed the week the new neighbors arrived. The rumble of a truck engine shattered the silence. A thunderous intrusion. Cairo jolted awake, his eyes wide with terror, his arms instinctively tightening around the tin can. His breath came in ragged gasps, the frantic panting of a cornered animal. He scrambled back into the darkest corner, seeking refuge behind a shattered crate, his small body trembling uncontrollably. Loud noises meant danger. Loud noises meant fire. Loud noises meant loss. Outside, Nora and Malik unloaded boxes, their laughter and conversation carried on the wind. Their daughter, Alani, a whirlwind of youthful energy, darted around the yard, kicking pebbles and chasing butterflies. Suddenly, she stopped, tilting her head towards the abandoned house, her brow furrowed in concentration. "Mom, did you hear that?" she asked, her voice laced with curiosity. "Hear what, sweetie?" Nora replied, preoccupied with a heavy box. "A sound. Like crying." Alani insisted. Malik chuckled softly. "Probably just the wind, Alani. Nobody lives there. It's falling apart." Alani frowned, unconvinced. Then why did something move? Later that evening, Malik, taking a break from unpacking, wandered near the back fence and froze. There, imprinted in the soft earth, were tiny footprints, bare, small, and undeniably fresh. "Nora, come look at this," he called out, his voice tinged with concern. But it was the next morning that everything irrevocably changed. Alani, her curiosity piqued, ventured closer to the old house once more. Peeking through a cracked window, she saw something small and still huddled on the floor. Something round, tiny, curled up like a lost animal. She gasped, her small hand flying to her mouth. "No, not an animal. A child," she whispered, her voice trembling. "Mom! Mom! Come here." Nora rushed to her side, her heart pounding in her chest. She peered through the window, and the sight that greeted her stole the air from her lungs. In the dim, dusty room, a little boy lay on the wooden floor, curled up like a fragile question mark, asleep beside a scattering of cans and crumbs. "Oh my God!" Nora whispered, her hand covering her mouth, her eyes wide with disbelief. "Malik, call someone. There's a child in there." But before Malik could react, Nora, acting on pure instinct, pushed open the creaky door, the sound echoing in the still morning air. The stench of dust and decay assaulted her senses. She stepped inside, her movements slow and deliberate, her heart hammering against her ribs. One step, then another. The floorboards groaned under her weight. Then she saw him clearly. Cairo, tiny, alone, sleeping on the hard floor as if it were the most comfortable bed in the world. Nora's breath hitched in her throat. Her hands trembled, her eyes overflowing with tears. "Oh, sweetheart," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. She stood frozen, mesmerized by the sight of the boy. The room was cold, but his breathing was even colder, shallow and weary. The breathing of a child who had been deprived of safety for far too long. She took a tentative step forward, her voice barely audible above the pounding of her heart. "Sweetheart, can you hear me?" Cairo didn't stir. His cheek was pressed against the can he clutched like a precious treasure. His bare knees were drawn up to his chest, a defensive posture learned through necessity. His gray shirt clung to his frail frame, a tattered remnant of a life before the fire. Malik reached the doorway, his breath catching in his throat. "Nora, God, that's a baby." "I know," she whispered, her voice choked with emotion. "Look at him. Look how small he is. How long has he been like this? He must be terrified." Malik murmured, his voice heavy with concern. Don't touch him yet. He might wake up scared. But Cairo stirred anyway. The creak of the floor had pierced his fragile slumber. His eyes snapped open, dark, wide, and filled with primal fear. He jerked backward with such force that he collided with the wall behind him. The can slipped from his grasp and clattered across the floor, the sound amplified in the suffocating silence. His breath came in ragged gasps, his shoulders pressed against the wall, his trembling hands raised as if to ward off a blow. Nora instantly knelt, lowering herself to his eye level, her voice soft and soothing. No, 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 baby. It's okay. I'm not here to hurt you. Cairo didn't believe her. His small body trembled violently, and a whimper escaped his lips, a soft, broken sound, as if something deep inside him had forgotten how to cry. Alani moved beside her mother, her steps measured and gentle. She held out a small piece of bread she had taken from their kitchen, her face etched with concern. Mom, let me try, she whispered. Nora hesitated for a moment, then nodded, trusting her daughter's intuition. Alani knelt too, maintaining a respectful distance. She held out the bread with both hands, her voice trembling with worry. Hi, she said softly. Are you hungry? You can have this if you want. It's okay. It's for you. Cairo remained frozen, unblinking, his breath held captive in his chest. But his eyes flicked towards the bread, his gaze drawn by the promise of nourishment. His stomach growled so loudly that the sound echoed in the room. He didn't crawl towards her, though. Instead, he reached for the can first, his only anchor in a sea of uncertainty. He clutched it to his chest, then inched forward, crawling like a wounded animal expecting a trap. When he finally reached the bread, his tiny hand hovered over it, trembling violently. Nora's heart shattered at the sight. Malik swallowed hard, turning away for a moment to compose himself. Cairo snatched the bread and clutched it to his shirt, as if someone might snatch it away. He didn't eat it at first. He simply held it, smelled it, studied it, his eyes never leaving the three strangers who had invaded his world. Then, finally, he took a tentative bite, his wary gaze fixed on them. Nora slowly extended her hand, not touching him, simply placing it on the floor between them, a gesture of peace and reassurance. You're safe, she whispered. No one will hurt you. Cairo stared at her hand for a long time, his brow furrowed in confusion. Then, hesitantly, he placed his tiny palm on the floor beside hers. Not touching, just close. Close enough to signal that he wanted help, but didn't know how to ask. Mom, Alani whispered, her voice filled with compassion. Can he come home with us? Just for a little while? He's so cold. Malik rubbed the back of his neck, his expression conflicted. We need to call the authorities, Alani. He can't stay here like this. Nora nodded, but her gaze remained locked on Cairo. We'll do things properly. But first, we help him warm up. They didn't pick him up. He wasn't ready for that level of intimacy. They didn't force him to walk with them. He wasn't ready for that either. Instead, they sat outside the house with him for an hour, giving him space, allowing him to breathe air that didn't reek of dust and fear. Cairo remained close to the wall, clutching his can, his eyes darting nervously. He watched them intently, as if waiting for the moment they would reveal their true nature, cruel, loud, and dangerous. But they didn't. Alani spoke to him softly, telling him her name, pointing to their new house. Malik placed a warm blanket near him, but refrained from pushing it on him. Nora offered him more food, allowing him to take it in his own time. Slowly, imperceptibly, his shoulders loosened. The tension began to drain from his small body. By evening, when the sky was painted in hues of orange and purple, Cairo finally stood. His little legs were unsteady, his feet caked in dirt, but he stood. And then, unexpectedly, he reached towards Alani's sleeve, his tiny fingers tugging gently. A silent question, a plea for connection. Do you want to come? Alani asked, her voice filled with hope. Cairo didn't speak, but he didn't release her sleeve. Nora's hand flew to her chest, her heart swelling with emotion. Malik took a deep breath, nodding. "All right," he murmured. "Let's take him." They walked slowly, Cairo staying close to Alani, his dented tin can clutched tightly in his hand. When they reached the new house, the light spilling from the doorway made him squint, his eyes unaccustomed to such brightness. But the warmth, he felt it instantly. He stepped inside as if entering another world. They bathed him gently, their touch careful and reassuring. They wrapped him in a soft towel, its plushness a foreign sensation against his skin. They gave him warm soup, which he drank in tiny, shaky sips. When he coughed, Nora rubbed his back softly, her touch conveying unspoken comfort. When he dropped his spoon, Malik retrieved it without a word of annoyance. For the first time in his short, broken life, nobody rushed him. Nobody shouted. Nobody pulled him. Nobody left him. That night, Nora set up a small bed on the floor beside Alani's. "You can sleep here tonight if you want," she whispered softly. "Just tonight, until we figure things out." The little boy looked at the bed, then at Nora, then at Alani, who smiled at him gently, her eyes radiating warmth and reassurance. He lay down slowly, cautiously, as if afraid the bed would vanish if he moved too quickly. He placed his tin can beside the pillow, his old world resting alongside his new one. Alani whispered, "Good night, little one." He stared at her, blinking heavily, his eyelids heavy with exhaustion. His small fingers crept out from under the covers and touched her hand. Just a tap, a fleeting connection, but it was enough. Nora covered her mouth to stifle a sob, overwhelmed by the simple beauty of the moment. Within minutes, his breathing softened, his tiny body relaxed, and for the first time since the night the fire stole everything, he fell asleep, not in fear, not on cold wood, not clutching himself for warmth, but in a home, a real home. As he slept, Alani whispered to her mother, her voice filled with concern. "We're going to keep him safe, right, Mom?" Nora stroked her daughter's hair, her eyes brimming with tears. "Yes, baby. From now on, he will never be alone again." And under the soft glow of the lamplight, wrapped in warmth and tenderness, the little boy finally slept like a child again.